Hello there, and welcome to the Cargo Bay, a Star Wars conversation podcast being transmitted to you from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I am Brady C, here with my co-host, back from the Revolution on Rick's Road.
It's Adam B. I'm feeling a
Adam
little
B.
worse for wear, BC. How are you doing?
Ooh, things are getting hairy out there on Rick's Road, man.
Yeah, it seems like it's more like Los Angeles than it's ever been out here on Rick's Road.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was watching like a combination of January 6th coverage or like a Star Wars show, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah. The mixture of like police Imperials or like Imperials not in stormtrooper outfits, and then the stormtroopers behind. I was like, I recognize this. This reminds me of George Floyd protest.
Yeah. George Floyd protests. Also a little like French Revolution
Yeah.
action going on there too, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
If in case you're lost and you don't know what you're hearing us talking about, we are referring, of course, to the finale episode or episodes of season 1 of Andor. Just a masterpiece that we have been loving the entire time. This is actually the first time we are talking to each other about these last 2 episodes. So
Yeah.
should we just skip the pleasantries and just dive right into what you thought about this? Because that's what I'd love to find out.
Yeah.
We've got Daughter of Ferrix, episode 11, and Rick's Road, episode 12, are sort of our 2-part finale here.
Well, I'm glad to say that this continues on the trajectory for me of being terrified that this show will suddenly start being not good or not as good as it has been. And in fact, being like, oh, I think that episode was my favorite episode. Oh, I think that episode was my favorite. I mean, I don't know that the last episode stands alone. Obviously, it's built on the whole season. But yeah, I was very pleased how this show wrapped up. How about you?
Yeah, I again pleased, just elated with this entire experience of Andor. I woke up early and watched Rick's Road because I had some trouble sleeping. This was while I was at my folks for little Thanksgiving vacay, which was nice. But I popped into the other room. I was like, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. No one's doing anything. So I was like, I just popped it on my phone because I didn't want to disturb anybody. But I was like, it's out, so I'm gonna get on it. And even just sitting there watching it on my phone in silence, I was like, I love this show so much.
Yeah.
So good. I just finished a rewatch of the finale, the final 2 episodes again. I love it. I think this show has lived up and like exceeded any expectations I could have had for a Star Wars project, especially on Disney. I think it's been kind of exactly what I've always wanted as a Star Wars fan, which has been, just very pleasing to have given to me in the highest quality.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I felt like, kind of a jerk sometimes with my criticisms of Star Wars, which I love all flavors of, even when it's bad, I love it. But I guess my expectations just aren't usually met, because I know there's amazing things out there, and there are amazing filmmakers out there who make these things. And sometimes I've just, I've been like, where's the thing that is clearly out of my league as far as conceptualizing a show and like expectations of what it should look like and present itself as, and being like, oh, well, I don't really have any notes. Like, I have a few tiny notes, but it's really just preference. It's not like that was bad storytelling.
Can I pose this to you? Because just as a thought question experiment sort of thing. So I tried to have no expectations going into Andor.
Right.
Do you think your experience with this was at all flavored by Book of Boba and Kenobi being perhaps less than what we expected? I mean, this is good. No, I mean, there's no bones about it. But were your expectations sufficiently
in a place
set
to be blown out of the water?
Right, yeah. Were they because I'm always like, I don't have any expectations for Kenobi, and then of course I do, because it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I get let down when it's not like exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And for this is like, I don't have any expectations, but I legitimately felt like my expectations are just like I'm gonna go for the ride because I've been burned with my like no expectations feelings going into Boba Fett and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Was there any of that for you? Like, or did it not matter?
I I don't know how exactly I felt because that first trailer I saw at the convention, I was like, "Oh, this looks different. Like it might be really good." So I at least had that buzzing around of like it might be really good, and some of the early reviews were like, "This is like a prestige television show," and I was like, "Yeah, right." So my expectations were at least like there. It's like it's not gonna be where it is. But I don't know. I think whatever place I was in, this to me, I think it's a difference between this and Rogue One, because I do like Rogue One and I think it's well made.
Right.
But there's some level of quality here, and the story knows where it's going. It's like the
Yeah.
biggest thing. It's been so long since we had a Star Wars thing that knew where it was going to end up and like got there in a well crafted way. Um, so I don't know. I think I would have liked it in a vacuum. At least I hope so, because I can't think of any other Star Wars minus Empire that I think is better conceived. This.
Right. And you made a good point about the whenever that first trailer came out. Maybe I don't know. I'm sure if it was the first one, but there was a specific trailer that came out where the buzz around it afterwards was like, "There's we shot on locations," and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
interesting." Like just like the textures and the look of what you got in
Yeah.
that like 2 minutes, you're like, "This seems like it might be something different."
There's
And
real dirt.
yeah, and man, did it deliver on that promise. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of, I mean, I don't think anything compares to this that they've done visually on the D plus.
No.
Mandalorian included.
Which
Obi
looks
Wan
good.
was look. Mandalorian looks great. I thought Kenobi looked like kind of like a turd.
Yeah.
And Book of Boba Fett the same. I mean, they were fine, but nothing even close. I mean, there's a cinematic scale on this, like legitimately. I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that you have a much smaller scale story that makes everything feel bigger. It's like, hey, it
Yeah,
worked. There's you focus on one little town, and to me, like part of what makes the finale so great is you understand the limited resources of the Empire in this universe. It's like, oh, well, mostly we're over here dealing with this base that we just bombed. So you've got your whatever, Deidre, you've got your little force over there on Ferrix. Like, good luck. No one's coming to the rescue immediately. I've been reading EU novels. I've been reading the X-wing books, and they're constantly talking about like that's 8 hours away. That's 2 days away, right? Like, which is something I've complained about a lot. And I felt that in this show, like pitting one small force against another just makes everything more believable. Yeah, it's small scale.
it contextualizes things in a very nice way. I think the way that the Empire is presented in this, the way that Ferrix itself is presented in this, the clarity of those two things is something I don't. I think for me, Rebels, I think has a little bit of that
Yeah,
in terms of how that Lothal is presented. You know that there's a
yeah,
locality, that there's a township, that there's the way that the rebellion is going to function here. Seeing it in live action is a little bit different, but I think for me the biggest thing is how it's kind of repositioned the empire in my mind through this show. You know, obviously they've they have always been bad, right?
right.
Like
Yeah,
that's never been a secret. Like yes, they are bad, but they've always been this like pillar or totem of a wall of just evil that has no very little texture to me. Now it makes a lot more sense that they are going into like for me the more they dive into the bureaucracy of it, the more I really enjoy it, and the
yeah,
more it even has like it paints what the rest of the empire is in Star Wars. I mean, it would be interesting to go back and watch, you know, the original trilogy movies now that it's sort of been recontextualized for me and how I view the empire, which I think is one of the coolest things that this show has done is how it has positioned them and their limited resources and their infighting and all that sort of stuff that I just like eat up, that they're not like we're perfectly in step and we know exactly what we're doing.
We're
And
a ghost army that rose out of Exegol.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that we all are animated at the exact same time, so we move in unison. That there's genuine menace to even the stormtroopers in this last episode, where you've never felt like real fear at seeing like a couple of lone stormtroopers,
Yeah.
but the way that they can just position them in ferrex and have them with blasters, there's a much more immediate sense of danger with them now than there ever was before, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really good to feel like they're like the Empire is a competent and terrifying enemy.
Yeah,
It's a good thing.
I mean, if you want your hero to feel worthy of the challenge, you need to have a villain that is of the same quality. I mean, before, you have Darth Vader is iconic. The Emperor.
Yeah.
There's those are iconic characters, but I mean, I think what this tells you is obviously the Empire is more than just those icons and those totems. It's these outliers. It's these outposts. It's these small-minded fascists who are all over the
Yeah.
place, who are seeking to control little pockets of power throughout the galaxy that make it give it a lot more texture as opposed to sort of the iconography of Vader or the Emperor, and has true menace and evil permeating throughout the entire thing,
Yeah.
which has, I mean, they've just been sort of nameless figures and faces before, and now it even, I mean, if we don't know their names, that there's characteristics in all these characters that I think just have been lacking.
Yeah, if you what you take away from World War II is Hitler is bad, you're kind of missing the bigger point, which is like, no, what's really terrifying is that a bunch of people got swept up and supported him, and there
Let's
were other despots to also
Yeah.
help. Like,
Let's acknowledge that yes, you came to the party with the right idea. Yes, Hitler
yeah,
is bad.
yeah,
That's a good start. Now, what we need to do is ask a few more probing questions of how was this allowed to happen?
yeah,
Because it's not just one guy. It's never been just one guy. I mean, it's the machine of it all, right? Which I think is what they're doing really well is painting the machine. I thought it was really, I mean, for me, it was perfect in the prison episode, the way that was depicted in terms of this is the machine that they are in, as they're, spoiler alert, building the machine that is going to be the machine of Star Wars. We
yeah.
get our first post credit scene,
Which
I
I
think.
was not pleased to hear that there was a post-credit scene, because
Yeah,
I typically hate them. But this is how
yeah,
you should do it. You don't introduce a new character. You just do a special effect shot that didn't fit else. Like just give a
yeah.
little sprinkle candy at the end.
Yeah. I thought it was. I don't know. The season I think is perfect. It exists as like one perfect season of Star Wars television. We're getting another one. It's filming. I think it's underway as of like this week.
Yeah.
Just recently started. I do want to go into maybe a little bit more specifics
Yeah.
in these two episodes.
Yeah, because we haven't even talked about, that's what's crazy. We haven't talked about episode 11 yet either.
No, we
So
haven't.
there's a lot to cover.
And I'll say so. Episode 11 has one of my favorite Star Wars moments, which is the Luthen escaping
Yeah.
from the ship,
From the
using
Colin Cantwell
yes,
destroyer. I was so
the
excited. I was so
yeah
happy.
the Cantwell class destroyer, which visually looks perfect.
Here's
There it
my
is,
here's my signed print.
amazing.
When my fiance got this for me, but when we were picking like what print to get, I remember being like, maybe I'll get a different one. Anyway, I finally settled on this one, and I wondered if that was the right choice. And I'm like, I've got his signature on his named after him destroyer, and
It's perfect, and I mean, it's not a ship that I or probably a lot of other people would have been familiar with before this,
yeah,
but it looks perfect in this universe.
yeah,
It works like the sort of like hunting down, you know, the Hall ships with that tractor beam on the front, like looks amazing, functions perfectly. And the way that Luthen like starts deploying all of his countermeasures to make the escape, I'm like, yes, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
exactly what I want. To me, I mean, that was perhaps my favorite moment. I mean, I think it was my favorite moment of the episode. I'm trying to think of anything else that would contend with that, but for me, that was like, I don't know, peak Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, that was awesome. And the chaff, like the mirror chaff that he uses to screw up the tractor beam. That's something
Yes.
that was in High Republic. They discussed that concept of like they got into the technical details of how that would work. Um, so I can't remember exactly what it was, but my point was it was cool to see that like echoed in the show. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the people who are behind the like canon of Star Wars are, they're thinking about this stuff. It's good.
Yes, it is very very good stuff. So I mean, I don't have a like a written thing in terms of what happened in the episode.
Yeah.
Essentially, where we're at is Marva. We're in the aftermath of Marva's passing.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Oh, we get that
We get just
POV shot from from B2 emo.
B2. Man, they come in and just crush the emotions with some of that B2 emo stuff in terms of like, I want my Marva, and you're like, oh my, like, and I got over the like, do we have to rethink how droids feel in the Star Wars universe? I'm like, no, just enjoy the fact that
Yeah,
this
yeah.
happened, and it's like one of the most gut wrenching moments, and it comes from a droid, you know.
Yeah.
The moment of him like having Brasso stay because he doesn't want to leave, and Brasso's like, fine, I'll stay with you tonight, and
Yeah.
we'll leave. Like, man, some of that stuff, like that's the sort of stuff that just crushes me, and I love because it's unexpected.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I mean, all of this, her death being kind of the main story engine, I think, obviously for what these two episodes are, that is going to lead to a funeral. We get this uh, sort of the history, a little more history of what happens on Ferrix, where sort of noted citizens are fired into a brick and literally become part of the town, or how the foundations are built. More on that brick later. But yeah, so we kind of learned that Marva is going to be fired into a brick and become part of Ferrix. We get a little bit more of Mon Mothma and her daughter, who we
Yeah.
find out is like a Christian fundamentalist.
Yeah, yeah,
the,
basically.
the Chandrillan equivalent of a Christian
Which
fundamentalist.
what a great twist to throw in. Like beautiful. It's wonderful. She's on the opposite side, of course.
Yeah, she wants to be a child bride of traditional Chandrillan marriage, and Mon Mothman's like, great, because I could really use some of this banking connection to start moving some money around. So, see ya. Yeah, so that all starts to play. We've got Luthen escaping. Cassian and Melshi are on the lam
Yeah, yeah,
after having escaped from their what Narkina 5,
yeah.
uh, and they get trapped in that gooey web
Our
by those.
only alien, like significant alien appearances in Andor,
Yeah,
which is which is great. Love these guys. Love that the internet has correctly pointed out like you had the mole man and Obi-Wan that acted like a nice guy and was a conniving awful person, and then you have these guys that are kind of rough around the edges and then are like, oh yeah, solidarity.
down with the
Yeah.
Empire. Yeah, uh, yeah. So they're on the right side of history, which is great for these mole men or whatever
Yeah.
they.
And they've got a
uh,
quad jumper. I like that ship design. Always have. That was
mhm.
cool.
And so they're gonna take Melshi and Cassie, and they pop them back to Space Miami,
Yep.
um, where luckily Cassian is able to retrieve
His
his loot box that
yeah.
he's got. That of course is gonna have his blaster. It's gonna have his credits, and we are going to return to the revolutionary text that exists, which is going to also just be part of that chorus fighting against the Empire and the Thought Machine. So we've got all of that sort of uh, going on as we get ready to move into the finale. Um, I loved this episode as a
Yeah.
standalone, but even knowing that it was leading up to the finale, it's like I don't know. I thought I'd be disappointed that I have to wait for another one, but like it left me satisfied. It left me looking forward to
Yeah.
the next one. I thought it was perfect.
I was looking forward to it. I was still just nervous of like, how do we land this thing? How are
Mm-hmm.
we gonna have this big finale that makes sense? Like, because anytime Star Wars starts to approach, I was just thinking of the end of the Book of Boba Fett, right, where we're kind
Yeah.
of setting up for this meeting of everything, and
Yes.
couldn't be two more different examples of how to execute that. Like,
I know.
um, and I'm,
It-
I don't mean to just crud on the Book of Boba Fett, but obviously I think comparisons are justified. We're talking about the same universe and the same franchise. I get a little upset when I read people that are so mad about like, how would you compare a Star Wars to a Star Wars? And I'm like, I don't know, apples to apples. That's how.
you
Um,
just, you. It is funny because the action that's going to end up taking place in the finale on Rick's Road and the action that takes place in the finale in the you know streets of Tatooine, um, how kind of how similar in concept they are,
yeah,
but how far apart they are in their execution. Like completely, just for me, opposite ends of the spectrum on how those things are executed, as in how well it's done in Andor, and how sort of let down I felt by Book of Boba Fett. And I'll give them maybe some benefit that I'm not sure if COVID filming had anything to do
well,
with
this
how.
is I've seen the pictures for this was also filmed in at least mask regulations where everyone
Mm,
on set for this is like in masks until they're
mm,
shooting. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to place blame
no, no,
or
it
whatever. Like maybe the end of Book of Boba Fett is your thing, and that's fine. I just didn't see the same level of care and the sequence
no.
of Boba and Din like talking about their plans versus like the four Imperials squeezed together on that balcony, like over
Yes,
it's like it's just every shot is so good and funny. uh, in that planning, it's like
eh, and there's no big gaps in like why did it take 20 minutes for this to happen and during the
yeah,
course of the sequencing of events here, like it's all paced, it all makes sense. I mean, a big huge shout out to the production designer whose name I don't
Luke
have off it.
Hull.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of of what's the HBO Chernobyl
Yeah,
fame.
yeah,
Like it's funny because I started seeing there's a lot of crossover between Chernobyl and this
yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of one,
Actors
actors, everything. Like,
behind the scenes, yeah.
yeah. And you and we're both big Chernobyl heads here.
Yeah.
Absolutely love the show about nuclear
Yeah, yeah,
fallout.
yeah. I binged
um,
it in 2 nights.
oh yeah, I mean I was all over Chernobyl. But to have that be like one of the actual visual references for this show, like we were in the bag for this and we didn't even know it.
Yeah,
Whereas like
yeah.
we're bringing in the guy from Chernobyl to do Star Wars, I would have been like, what?
Yeah,
Amazing!
exactly. That was had no idea. And like prior, like I think a few weeks prior had just been like Chernobyl is my favorite thing. And then
Yeah,
like
yeah. And then like, yeah, the Chernobyl team's doing Star Wars now. It's like, what? I love it. Uh, but yeah, I mean the visual language of this finale, it just made me love however this was filmed compared to what we've done previously in the volume. I, for me, I'm like, yeah, the volume has its functions.
yeah.
I don't know that it's been utilized. I think it's being overutilized in a lot of ways, and it's a real
Yeah.
crutch for a lot of things. Where it's like, hey, we can just load up the old game engine, throw some stuff, around the volume, and we'll shoot in there. As opposed to, we found a dam in, Northern Ireland or wherever, or in the
Yeah.
Highlands of Scotland. We found these locations, or we found the brutalist architecture and we threw some Star Wars on it, and that's believable and we buy that. It's just the tangible nature of what this show was. I think, I mean, made me fall in love with Ferrix. I think that's one of the big takeaways is like the the texture, the tone, the feel, everything about Ferrix feels so grounded. And that's one of the big things that we've talked about throughout this entire thing is like it's very grounded, it's very human, and it's very relatable, which is not always the case for Star Wars, but this I think definitely goes out of its way to play into those things, and it's from top to bottom, from writing to design to performance, all of those things are integrated so well to make it a very human, relatable story to, for better or worse, our lives right now.
Yeah, yeah. A little too close to home in some ways.
Sometimes a little too close for comfort.
Well, they built a culture for Ferrix, and they also built a culture for the ISB, which is, sometimes we just get the set decoration without the consideration of, where things are coming from. And that's the cut of that trailer that I saw at the convention. The opening shot was the gong ringer like walking up to the bell tower and striking the bell, and I was just like, oh, this is distinctly different from like anything I've seen. Like, we're spending some time on an extra just to like watch him like hit a bell. Should we talk through the plot of the finale a little bit?
Yeah. So the plot of the finale, we've got Cassian is returning to Ferrix safely and securely. They've even noted that, and this is I missed this on the initial watch probably because it was at 5 o'clock in the morning, but they're like, yes, we've loosened security regulations to make it easier for comings and goings at this particular time. So I mean, they sort of justify how everyone is able to get into Ferrix for this occasion because everybody shows up.
And Cassian, one of my only complaints, Cassian shows up, like, steps out into the street, just like, hey, I'm here, baby. I don't have a hood on or anything.
Cassian Andor.
Yeah, they're showing up.
Yeah, so we've got him, Dedra Miro, and the whole Imperial garrison are there preparing for Andor. They want to take him alive. I mean, this is all part of essentially the hunt for Luthen, Axis, who is obviously Axis, or the center point of what they believe the rebellion is. So that's sort of the main thing of their hunt. So if we can get Cassian, we can find out who Axis is. He's the one who's sort of tying all these things together. We did fail to mention Saw Gerrera was in the previous episode.
Oh yeah, that was great. Really good.
Where we had Luthen going essentially to say, hey, we gotta let Krieger bite the dust. Hope you're okay with that.
Man, what a scene. What a great scene that was.
Fantastic stuff. And Anton Krieger, rest in peace. We didn't know you. Sounds like you were a rebellious guy.
Maybe my favorite scene in the finale. I guess there are a lot for up in the running, but when we have the talk where we're revealing that Mon Mothma has maybe leaked her husband's gambling problem, quote unquote, and then they walk out of that room into the conference room where they're wrapping up the Krieger operation, and they're all in there. Man, that is such a great sequence, and the graphics of the like where the bombs hit and all that. Man, so good.
Yes, fantastic stuff. I did really love. I've loved everything with Mon Mothma, but the way that she is playing into the fact that the ISB driver is like, listening in and just feeding him misinformation about
pursed lips. I wanted to make a gif of that driver doing that kind of.
So I mean, very strategically is leaking about her husband's gambling problem, which at the moment he does not have, but it is very choice for this particular sort of cover-up operation to move the funds around as she is getting ready to marry her daughter off to Davos Skolden's kiddo. It seems like a beautiful meeting of the minds that we're going to have there. Yeah, so that all occurs.
We've got
Um,
Cinta and uh
Vel.
Mel. Yeah. So they're meeting. Cinta is broken, presumably from having murdered that family uh at the at the end of episode 6. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Um
eye on Aldani.
yeah, because I think clearly that's what happened. You know, that's what Vel was like, "Are you going to be okay?" And what, you know, before they separated that episode. And I think, "Are you going to be okay murdering this family after you, you know, kill this family?" And clearly she's not, you know, she's been broken.
A lot of broken people, including our broken Bix, still imprisoned. Who Cassian is? He's sort of on the hunt for.
Yeah.
Again, this is it's all taking place around Marva's funeral proceeding. So the general hubbub around the town is. I mean, it just is going to gradually build and build and build throughout the episode. So you've got Cassian who's looking to retrieve Bix from the hotel prison.
And how it
Um,
opened and kind of the timing of the episode is built around our character building a bomb.
yes,
Just why? I'll just say insane that we got a Disney show where our heroes include a guy who throws a bomb at a protest. Like, did not
yeah,
think I was going to see that happen from Disney.
no,
But this is about the reality of revolutions and that they're not pretty and people get hurt. You know, like, uh, and yeah, it's wild to see that guy winds up in our crew at the end.
yeah. Which yes, we'll get to that too. The probably another one of my favorite moments in this episode is the big uh, the funeral procession that begins. You and I were talking a little bit
Yeah.
before we started recording. Marching bands are canon
And
in
that's
Star Wars.
our opening music because the you know the fly-in logo always has a different flavor of the theme. We got
Hmm.
that band playing, so I was like, oh, when are we going to see that? And indeed we do. We get some octagonal trumpets
Yes,
and triple flutes.
they kind of look like Dr. Seuss instruments a little bit. I love
Yeah,
it. They're fantastic.
yeah,
We begin with the sort of the funeral dirge, you know, as they're making their way through the streets. And then whenever I mean, it's all building. We're setting up the Empire, they were like, we're allowing this to happen. We've given them this much time. It's all part of their plan to, hopefully draw out Cassian Andor. But they're also the opposition force. And then they get to the moment where the band picks up and they really start marching directly towards them. And we're gonna get to Marva's farewell speech, right? That
yeah.
we have transmitted through B2, a very functional droid. He does
Yeah,
all
this
sorts
is
of stuff.
one of my only complaints with the episode was just that hologram's too big for a droid with power problems. But then I imagined that as a frame of a comic book, and I was like, yeah, that's how they would do it. I got
Yeah.
over it, but at first I was like, what are we doing? That's a
She's
giant.
gigantic.
Yeah, yeah.
She's
But
huge.
yeah, maybe that's his main purpose is being a projector bot.
He's got a big old projector knobby
Yeah,
on
yeah,
top, so that might be one of his main functions. But we get her sort of rallying cry, which is essentially uh, fight the Empire, and
yeah,
to me it was whatever sort of visual the costumes in here I really enjoyed because it did. I mean, for me, the immediate thing that I thought about was like Revolutionary War era soldier uniforms.
yeah.
Like it's a call to that. It's a call to sort of like French Revolution stuff. Like that is sort of baked into it. There is something kind of military about that look. It's not something we've seen the characters on Ferrix wear. So
Yeah.
it's like it's part of this. It's the funeral almost celebration, but like having this particular costume that also doubles as like, hey, we're not going to take any shit. This is a revolutionary force if we need to be. You have the rallying cry from Marva, which is we've rolled over for this long enough, and now they're here, and now the only thing we can do is fight.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they've taken everything from us. They're an occupying force now.
and again, if that wasn't well written or well performed, it would be a big old wet like cheesy bad moment for me. But it's
Yeah.
so like I believe it that it's a woman that is, dying who's like
Yeah.
trying to like sew everything together. It's got a really I don't know, it
It
just
it
feels real.
it is so. I mean, it's the right. We can talk how much we love all the writing within the speech. She acknowledges, she's obviously recording this death message, and she says it's something to the effect it's easy for the dead to call for a fight,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
For the living to
Yeah,
be
for the
brave
living
or
to do
whatever.
the work, but the fact that she's acknowledging that in the message, because I can't fight anymore. I know it's easy for me to say, and now you are the ones who I know are going to be staring into the face of an opposing force. This is the message. And the way that it rallies them, it leads to that moment of a violent explosion of a revolutionary moment where we get the brick of Brasso.
Yes, the brick of
The
Brasso.
brick of Brasso, who uses Marva's brick to smash the face of some Imperials, which I thought was fantastic.
Once again, the we have the Imperial who throws the sheet over the the droid or his
Yeah,
cape, trying to shut it down, kicks everything off, and the action choreography again in this show is better than, I don't know, a lot of other shows. That brick hit looks like he hit that guy. Like it's a very good and most of the action choreography in this fight that begins, it feels real. It's put in a place that you can tell where things are happening. There's one shot of Luthen later after he's wandered away. There's one of my favorite shots where he's just kind of standing quietly, realizing that a lot of people are dying. And he just kind of looks down, and
yeah.
there's like smoke in the distance, and like a few laser bolts go by, but like the music is cut out, and it just kind of gives you the sense of like, oh right, like the layout of the town was thought about when they like choreographed this, partially because they had a real town. um
I think yes. I think to me one of the what had to have been one of the hardest things to do is that it's well choreographed, but it's also you get the chaos of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That those two things can exist together to where it's not just like it's all chaotic. No, there
yeah,
it is. I mean, the action that's happening, there's chaos to it, but it's shot in such a way that you understand, you see those moments happening. You're not completely lost in what the action is. The timeline all makes sense in the editing of it. It's like Book of Boba Fett's finale could have taken some notes if this had come out before me, like, hey, this is probably how you should look to do this actioning sequence, because it captures something really well in terms of the violence, the chaos, but also the through line of what is happening and the story that still needs to be told through chaotic violence. And I think Luthen being sort of the wide angle lens at that end, I know exactly what you're talking about, where it's like he's higher up,
yeah,
he's isolated, and we're hearing the stuff. Like we were inside of the action, he's outside of it, observing it. It's a it's a character moment because this is what he's been driving for,
yeah,
right? Everything about the show has done aftermath and fallout really well.
yeah,
That there are consequences to all of these actions that have taken place, and we get to see them and experience them. I mean, from episode one on, like actions have consequences. The way that's going to continue to ripple out through next season, I'm incredibly excited for, because this seems like a pretty big one, because we
yeah,
get the mention of that the slaughter of Krieger and the 30 men is
yeah,
just so the emperor can have the taste of Aldani washed out of his mouth.
yeah,
Like he doesn't care about having anyone, you know, interrogated.
yeah,
He wants a body count. And now we're going into a full on like revolutionary moment for this thing that's happened on Ferrix that's just grown and grown and grown. And now we're seeing some more failure of the empire to control these things. Like it seems like it's all gonna get a lot harder for our good people of Ferrix, which is what Luthen has essentially been
yeah,
fighting for.
pushing. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
very touched by Marva's speech. And then he gets to witness like, oh yeah, well this does rely on civilians with bombs, and like,
Yeah,
and you know, a lot of people are getting shot. Defenseless people are getting shot, and that's I don't know. That's just the reality of a revolution. It blew my mind to see, like, you know, stormtroopers or troopers with riot shields, and our heroes are you know, like, pummeling them and you know, starting a war in the streets basically. It was shocking to me. It's
it
like
was. It really was. Like the imagery of it was because it is. It's relatable, right? I mean, it's stuff that
yeah,
we've seen recently within the last few years on our television screens happening in our country because some people think fascism's kind of a fun idea to play around with. Where it's like, hey, the this can't be something that we just passively keep letting happen. I think that's a big part of what
right.
Marva talks about is like, you know, at a certain point, yeah, we opened up our shipping lanes and yeah, we started to essentially let them in and now they're here and they're an occupying force. And we didn't stop it in the beginning and now there's the only thing we can do is fight. And it I think I mean for you and I definitely. I mean, we see these things happening on the news in the country. It's disturbing, but we're used to this kind of imagery on the news, and now seeing it reflected in Star Wars is kind of like I'm glad someone's saying something in a
Yeah,
universe that I love and pay attention to, and hopefully other people love and pay attention to.
that's I went to a lot of protests, I guess in 2020, and I was on some of the, like, you know, up at the front of these like marches where there was a line of police with riot
Yeah,
shields and then many military vehicles and people standing around with guns, and like the tension of that like of uh you know, was palpable and terrifying. And yeah, to see it represented in a way that felt real was like, and in Star Wars
yeah,
it rattled me. And
yeah.
preceding that moment, we finally get some of our manifesto,
Yes,
um,
Nimic's
which,
manifesto.
man, another moment that if it hadn't been scored well to me, like if the music would have been a little bit too like celebratory or whatever, but
Hmm.
instead we get like this kind of dark drone with the shots of, you know, like Luthen looking out into the storm and all this stuff. I was like, oh, they actually did a sappy sentimental thing that is working for me again. Like it's well written manifesto.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's some great stuff in there. Yeah, it's a great build up. R.I.P. to our boy.
Nimic crushed by capitalism, escaping from Aldani. I mean, it's poetry. It's
Yeah,
poetry. It's poetic the way that this has been presented. Yeah, so we've got a big scuffle, a big tussle is happening. It's very much Lexington and Concord, baby. This is the
yeah.
beginning of the revolution.
And it's just as messy as the Boston Massacre or whatever. Again, you know, there are people that are there are violent people on both sides of this thing who are
Yeah,
accelerating violence, right? Like
yes,
whichever side you identify with. And now we have Deidre also failing on Ferrix, just like
and
Cyril.
yes, and of course, reunited these two crazy cats are as he has come with old Sergeant What's His Nuts to
Yeah.
be a part of this.
We get that cool
Which
shuttle again, the cool
yes,
space bus.
you
Looks
knew I
great
love that
again.
moment.
Yeah.
You knew I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, so they come in and again, all because he didn't listen to his superior, who was completely right about Cassian justifiably murdering two of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
corpos on Morlana One. Full circle, we're back here, and this is on the escalation that's happened again. Consequences of actions, and the way that you can see how those dominoes lead to Cyril and the sergeant who's been outcast to whatever post he has now,
Yeah.
coming back to see if they can't help out again, heroes that they are, and Cyril is able to pull Dedra from the exploding bombs that are hitting other
Yeah.
grenades
Well,
and stuff. Like,
she's about to be ripped up by a bunch of a bunch of
yeah.
Phyrexians. Yeah.
So he pulls her into a room and they make googly eyes at each other. Cannot wait to see what happens with these two crazy cats in season 2.
Yeah.
I mean, um, I don't even want to venture a guess as to what's going to happen because I know it's going to be beautiful and terrible at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So
it's creepy on purpose, by the way,
yes,
everybody. Like it's
yeah.
it's not supposed to be a beautiful love story. It's supposed to be about two weirdos, not
I mean,
um
too, the
a s-
psychos.
yeah,
I
a
mean,
fascist
psychotic.
and a
Yeah,
stalker. Yeah.
yeah, it's a tale as old as time. So that I mean, again, that's being weaved in there. Cassian has rescued Bix. He's taking her out. We're exiting now, sort of out of kind of the chaos of the battle. We're in that kind of shipyard where Brasso and crew are getting ready to escape Ferrex because
Brasso now entered top tier Star Wars character, as we always hoped he would. He also grabs a droid arm at one point and is whacking people with it. Like,
I cannot. I will pay a small fortune for the Brasso autograph that comes out in whatever next set it comes out in,
yeah,
because
we need
I'm
a
gonna
tops
have
Brasso auto.
the Topps Brasso Superfractor 1 of 1
Yeah.
$15,000 bounty. I've got it out right now. Um, he's a top. I mean, I don't know. He's a top tier Star Wars character for me,
Yeah.
just based on this alone. And I was thinking about it while watching it here recently. It's like, I love that he's just a guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's just a guy on Ferrex who's like, I'll fight you.
Yeah.
I'm done with this. I'll fight you. But he's also got a big heart. He's caring. And now he is off on some adventure now because they're taking the ship.
Oh, and
He's
they all
got
just look devastated too. It's amazing.
yeah
There's no celebration. They're all just
no.
like,
They're like our Ferrex is toast.
oh, and
Like
you're leaving again, Cassian? Great.
yeah.
Cool.
So I will take Bix. I will take B2. I will do all of this. And going to Luthen's ship and essentially saying, "You can kill me, or you can take me in, and this is where we're gonna go." Which
Yeah.
Luthen is pretty pumped about. He knows he's got someone who is going to be worthy of the fight in the rebellion. Um, that's kind of where we leave it.
Yeah.
Getting ready for season 2. I love where we're at. I really do hope we get a lot of Brasso and the ship crew, and
Yeah.
see what they do. I know time's going to be a little bit different in season 2, and that every 3 episodes is a year. So, I mean,
Yeah.
sort of the arcs that we've had in this can kind of work as almost a prototype for short, I mean, movies. I mean,
Yeah.
feature length films essentially for these years leading up to Rogue One. But just the way the pieces on the chessboard are positioned at the end of this, I'm like, I'm ready for season 2. You can go ahead and if you want to put a rush on getting those shot, I'd appreciate it because I'm ready to watch it.
I want him to take as much time as possible. I want him. That's what I'm just worried. How do you follow up after this? But the good news is this season is done and complete, and is kind of about as good as a season could be in my imagination. So we've got that forever. And I do have faith that season 2 will be good.
I do too.
Always
And
nervous.
I mean, well, we started by talking a little bit about expectations, and I think the thing that makes me believe in the show's next season even more is that I never after every sort of episode or I was like, I don't know if it's gonna get better than that, and then it
Yeah,
does,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
keeps living up to it. Like, okay, well, I should just shut up that doubting part of my mind that's like, well, I don't know, like the wounded part of me as a Star Wars fan. It's like, just don't expect this to be good.
Yeah,
Just if you
yeah.
don't think it's gonna be like really good, then you're
Just
not gonna be hurt by it.
yeah, enjoy the dumb parts of it.
Yeah. But there was no real dumb parts of this. It was all very uh, it was all real smart the way they
It
did
was
things.
that. It
But I
was
mean,
though.
yes, it was, and to put it in the dumbest way I can. But when we talk about, for me, it's looking at the production value of everything.
Yeah,
This has been a recurring thing: writing, directing, music, costumes, set. All of those things have synthesized perfectly for me in
yeah,
this show, and it's what I think every production strives for at the beginning of any of their journey. incorporate all of these elements. But the reality of that, if you've ever made anything, is hard. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
hard to do all
yeah.
those things. It's made easier if you have a lot of money, which Disney does. But even with all those resources, they've fallen short too. And it's not like they're trying to, make something that's going to fall short of our expectations. This is the first thing that I think is just completely understood what it is and hasn't had to answer to anything else and hasn't tried to shoehorn into some other timeline. There's been so much free reign on what this is. We don't have to be like, but where are we going to get the force users in this? It's like that's not what we're doing. We're telling a completely different story, and it's so focused and so clear in its mission that it has become one of my favorite things of the pieces of Star Wars of all time.
And for me, I think that's part of the different approach is like the show is named Andor, but this is a show about a movement. It's about a thing, and then we get the characters out of that.
Yeah.
Versus, an Obi-Wan or a Boba Fett, where it's like this is about the character's story.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, the character already exists. We got a lot of story with these characters. Maybe less with Boba Fett. But trying to construct the show around their journey versus like something larger reflecting like life back. I don't know, I just think
Yeah.
it's a harder thing to do, to be like, I'm gonna make the Luke Skywalker movie that's super compelling. No, what makes Luke Skywalker compelling is that he is one part of this larger universe,
Yeah.
that has a role in a universe versus the universe having a role for him, like, or just
Yeah.
serving as a backdrop. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm just tickled. I'm tickled pink.
I'm tickled pink, and I can't wait for the Tops Andor official release.
Give it to us.
I would do anything for them to do it. I hope they do. I mean,
Every actor, every small role. I want those autos.
I do. It is the first thing where I'm like, I would try to complete the autograph set of the Andor series.
Yeah,
And knowing that Diego Luna is going to be the most expensive one is like, oh, all right, I'll fork it out eventually. But it's like, even the background actors, the small roles, the security officers, I think top to bottom, it's been really good. Which leads me, now that we've completed this journey.
yeah.
I want a favorite, an MVP moment, performance, character, an award uh, given out to something from Andor season 1 that you want to call special attention to.
Wow. I mean, the thing that I tell people, like outside of what I like most about Star Wars, when I talk to other people about the show, I'm usually like, you got to see Mon Mothma in this show. You got to see. I think her performance is so good, and what they do with that character represents what I've wanted Star Wars to do forever, which is make things real and
Mhm.
focus on like real life struggles. So just by virtue of that always coming into my mind first, we got to give some award to Mon Mothma.
I think you're absolutely right. Again, this has been a recurring thing. We're always googling over performance. We're just like, she's so good in every episode.
Yeah,
And it's funny because I think Tony Gilroy is also he's acknowledged that too. He's like, we not that they inherited her, but it's like she's been an
yeah,
existing character. So this actress is someone that maybe he didn't cast initially, but he sort of said, it's like composing music and finding out that you've got someone who can play a Stradivarius. Essentially,
yeah,
is like the level that he speaks to her of is just like she can perform everything that I write for her. And because he's such a good writer, he can go really deep, and she gives you so many moments where a look is going to give you 10 pages worth of dialogue, which not every actor can do. It's like,
yeah.
we don't need a lot of dialogue. Just tell her what the moment is, and her face will tell
Her
you the
face is an
story.
instrument. Yeah, her control
Yeah.
of her like facial muscles, like to tell like how she's
Yeah.
feeling. It's really impressive.
You see those transformative moments. There's one specific when she's walking through the party, and you see her like she's in Mon Mothma mode, and then it just drops like once she's out of earshot of everybody. You're like, oh, she's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like she's just really good at this. Her performance, yeah, MVP Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. I've talked about this a little bit before, but I do just a general weird one that I want to give out. The town of Ferrix.
Yeah.
I love it.
They built that
I,
thing, baby.
I love that. I love that it's built. I love that there's a culture that exists, that they took the time to think about those things.
Yeah.
It's that level of detail in the writing that makes the difference. Because you can build a cool town and have people standing around and tell the story, but they're like, you know what? Let's think about what the everyday life is. Let's think about, how you wake up in the morning. Let's think about, how you go to work. Let's think about how, I mean, the shot of the gloves on the wall is like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know why it exists, but it's an image that sticks in my mind because someone took the time to think about it.
Yeah.
It's all those little touches that they have in the production design of Ferrix that make it stand out for me. Typified by that beautiful transport that looks like something out of like Art Deco, New York City from like the 30s or 40s or
Yeah,
something.
that bus is awesome.
I love it.
That's I mean, I feel like I have a better sense of Ferrix than I do of Mos Eisley at this point,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah,
like
completely.
if I show up in Ferrix, I kind of know like what to do, like and try to get a job and breaking ships, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Mos Eisley, I guess, or I guess I don't know if Obi-Wan's an anchorhead or Mos Eisley when he's cutting the fish up. I guess you can get some fish cutting gigs, but yeah, I don't really understand how the town works or like any of the culture that exists beyond like there's a lot of aliens meeting here. Okay, cool. We don't like sand people, but this is after we focused on Tatooine over and over and over and over again.
Well, the thing is, like, we've had so much Tatooine, and we're like, I still don't really know. I mean, it's just like a wild sand planet. You know what I mean?
Why did people move here? Who founded this place? We still don't know all of those details about Ferrix, but we have a lot of clues that have presented themselves naturally. I mean, just the brick laying of dead people is, more interesting than anything in Tatooine's culture I can think of.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so shout out to Ferrix, Mon Mothma. Again, Brasso was just impressed that he could carry the emotional weight of this last episode in the march because he's been good and I've liked watching him. But again, it's like so many of these actors are put into situations where they have to act their pants off, and then they do. So shout out to that. Shout out to Cinta stabbing that guy. Also, we didn't talk about that. That was very satisfying.
Great moment.
And I wanted to mention, of course, overall production design. But something I learned, I think I was reading in an interview with Diego Luna. They built that prison set the same way they built the Alien set, where they just built the thing and locked them in there all day for shooting, basically. Man, so cool.
Because I've gone all the way back too, so I've had like a couple different rewatches going. So my partner and we've been catching up together on everything. So I just went back and saw the first episode of the prison arc. Just the choreography of like, hey, you're gonna, as an actor, you're gonna be doing this. Like that they took the time to like, here's how these things are built.
Yeah.
Right. Like there is a system in place for how those pieces of the Death Star are being manufactured and put together in this prison system. And they have the thing that comes down here. They've got the parts that fit into this. There seems like there's real weight to it. Like all of that is incredibly impressive to me from a production standpoint, because it's not like you can just be like, all right, hey, here's this stuff. We're going to get the shots. Like, you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Like they had to sit there and teach them how to put this thing together so they could get all of those shots of everyone, not just the main table, but all of the 7 tables in the room, choreographing these things of like, hey, even if you're in the background, this is how these things work. It's very practical. It's it's seemingly minor thing, but the choreography of all that had to have been a lot.
It's a lot of extras to work with. Yeah,
it is. And because it's 49 guys in the room, like that's how those things are, like that's how that room is designed. So it's got all those tables. Obviously not everyone's doing it in in every shot, but if you're in a wide and a master, you have them all knowing what they're doing, and the fact that they built all of those tables and have them working and functioning. I mean, who else does that? What other show's
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah. I can't think of anything. That's I went back and watched some Mandalorian episodes just to see like how they stacked up recently. And there's some really cool stuff with the volume. I watched the the heist episode in season 1, and it's like, yeah, this hangar bay could not exist without the volume, and it looks great, and there are practical elements mixed in. Um, but another thing that show suffers from is a lack of extras, and the volume, kind of creates that issue in some
Yeah.
ways. But like, yeah, the band marching and the whole town coming in, like that's a lot of resources.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of money to pay that many people
Yep.
to show up, and I'm glad they did because it pays
To
off.
to show up and then to put them in costume too. That
Yeah,
they all have individual. I don't know. It's you think about the levels that they went to in this show to get the shots. There's a lot of care taken that is, I think, I appreciate after having tried to make things with my own, as an artistic endeavors. Seeing the lengths that this show went to, I'm just like, this is kind of next level for anything that's been on the D+ recently.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I talk, trash about other shows that I like and love, like Obi-Wan and Boba Fett. The creative process is impossible, especially with a million people involved.
Yeah,
So like I'm not trying to be harsh. It's phenomenal when everything comes together in a well-oiled and purposeful mission. It's
yep.
exceedingly rare. We got it with Star Wars Andor. Hopefully, we'll get it with season 2. Uh, until then, we've got a lot more coming up. BC, we got.
Um,
Well, what's next? Bad Batch is next.
we've got Bad Batch coming up, and then Mandalorian
Season
3.
3.
Ahsoka is
Excited
going to be
about that.
coming out. Quick plug: we're going to do a little holiday special,
That's right.
and we're gonna veer away from Star Wars now that Andor has come to an end. We're gonna talk about one of our favorite films of all time. We're
Yeah.
gonna do a little throwback to Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Ever heard of it?
Nice little cup of cheer for everybody in the
Yes,
holiday
indeed.
season. And then maybe next year we'll do Two Towers.
We'll get both of those towers in there. Yeah, I want to do this one because I just want to talk about the movie, but I do always equate it with the November December time because that's typically when they were being released back when they first came out. So I have
Yeah.
very like strong memories of this time of year being very much like me like in a crazed state of like give me Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
which I didn't always know I wanted until I saw the Fellowship in theaters. So we'll get into all that, but excited to talk to you about that next time.
Yeah, me too, BC. And are we going to do a hobby talk after this?
Do you want to do one?
We can.
All
Yeah,
right,
let's
yeah,
do it.
let's
We'll,
do it.
we'll be doing a
Let's
hobby
fire up the
talk after
hobby talk
this.
machine.
It'll be on our YouTube channel. We're going to open some Book of Boba Fett cards. That's
Ooh,
exciting. But I guess that's it, BC. It's sad to leave Andor behind because it's been a delight. Get people to watch it. I know they put
everyone,
the
do
first 2
it.
episodes out on Hulu and on FX and like other places to
Yep.
try to get people hooked in. Tell people to watch it or we'll never get a nice thing again.
I think the word of mouth is starting to work because there are the pockets of people that I know who watch Star Wars who have been burned out. It's coming down to like, okay, yeah, I'll give Andor a shot. I'm like, you're not going to regret it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get into it.
Yeah. Should we, or where do you rank this before we get out of here, BC?
Oh,
If you pretend that movies are a thing and then TV show seasons are a thing, yeah, where would you put this? Because for me, this is, I'll give it some time to breathe, but I think
yeah.
this is probably my favorite Star Wars thing outside of the original trilogy. Like I can't think of anything that's fulfilled my like visions and hopes for this
It
universe more.
it is. When we talk about original trilogy, for me, it's always going to be um, Empire, New Hope, Return. I still love, but I think I think this sits in like a Rebels realm with me, which for me is pretty high praise
Yeah.
because I love Rebels. I mean, it's right up there in like top 5 Star Wars things that exist. Period.
It's I told someone it was really weird to get highly emotional watching Star Wars, not from nostalgia, but from like,
Right.
genuine just like plot and character moments. But yeah, it's top of the pack for both of us, I guess, BC.
Yep. We
Let
love
us
it. Go watch it.
Yeah, let us know what you thought out there. You can comment on our YouTube video. You can leave comments on our I don't know, on our stuff somewhere.
Do the things where the Cargo Bay Pod, most places where you can find.
But yeah, thanks for listening, y'all. Until next time, I guess we're signing out here in the Cargo Bay.
Go smoke yourselves.
Bye forever.
Bye, y'all.